You have never stopped moving. Not physically, something deeper than that. There is always something next, something to check, something to plan, something to fix. A podcast in your ears, the moment silence arrives. A screen in your hands, the moment you sit still. A conversation started the moment the previous one ends. You have become extraordinarily skilled at one thing, never being alone with yourself. And if someone asked you why, you would say you are busy, productive, engaged with life. But there is a quieter answer, one you have not said out loud, perhaps not even to yourself. You are afraid of what you might find if you ever stopped. Carl Jung called this one of the great unspoken tragedies of modern life. Not the things that happen to us, but the things we spend our entire lives running from, and what the running costs us. This video is about what happens when you finally stop. Every civilization in human history has noticed the same thing. Human beings will do almost anything to avoid being alone with their own minds. The philosopher Blaise Pascal observed it in the 17th century. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He was not speaking about introversion. He was not speaking about solitude as a preference. He was speaking about the terror of the unoccupied mind, the specific, visceral discomfort that arrives when there is nothing between you and yourself. Marcus Aurelius knew this terror personally. He governed the most powerful empire in history. He was never alone in any external sense. And yet he wrote for himself, never for publication, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." His own soul. He did not say, "Nowhere can man find peace except in distraction." He said the soul itself is the retreat. But to find that retreat, you have to be willing to enter it. And most people never do. Not because they are weak, because what waits inside is real. Jung spent 40 years studying the human psyche, and he returned again and again to the same observation. The thing people run from is almost never what they think it is. They think they are running from boredom, from silence, from being unproductive. They are running from the shadow. Jung called the shadow everything you have decided you are not, the parts of yourself that don't fit the person you have built for the world to see. Your anger, your grief, your longing, your fear of being truly ordinary, your suspicion, quiet, persistent, devastating, that the life you are living is not quite the one you were meant for. These are not small things. They are not comfortable things. And the noise of modern life is perfectly designed to keep you from ever having to face them. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You will call it fate. You will call it bad luck, the wrong circumstances, a difficult season. You will construct an entire explanation for why your life looks the way it does, without ever suspecting that the architect of it all is the part of yourself you have been running from. Here is what the running actually takes from you, not in dramatic ways, in quiet, cumulative, devastating ones. The first cost: you cannot think clearly. The mind that is never still cannot see itself. It can process, it can react, it can produce and perform and optimize, but it cannot see. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The person who never stops gives their imagination unlimited power. Because the fears they never face in stillness grow enormous in motion, they become the background noise of every waking hour, present everywhere, named nowhere. The second cost: you cannot choose. Real choice requires knowing what you actually want, not what you have been told to want, not what looks right from the outside. What you, the actual you, not the performing you genuinely want. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." First say to yourself what you would be, but you cannot hear that answer if you never stop long enough to ask the question. The person who is always moving makes decisions, but they are never fully their own. The third cost: you cannot be known, not by others, by yourself. And a person who does not know themselves cannot offer anything real to anyone else, only the performance of it. There comes a point it arrives differently for everyone, when the running becomes unsustainable. Not because the distractions run out, they never run out, but because something inside you gets tired of the performance. Jung called this the midlife crisis, but he did not mean it as the culture does. He did not mean the sports car, the affair, the dramatic reinvention. He meant the moment when the first half of life's strategies stop working, when achievement no longer fills the space it used to fill, when the relationships, the status, the busy schedule reveal themselves as insufficient answers to a question you never let yourself ask. Who am I when no one is watching? Marcus Aurelius faced this question in the most extreme possible circumstances. At war, grieving, betrayed, exhausted, and still he returned every morning, in his private writings, to the same practice, sitting with himself, honestly, without flattery, without performance. He wrote, "Look well into thyself, there is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." A source of strength, not a source of terror, but only accessible to the person who is willing to look. Here is what no one tells you about stopping. The first thing you feel is not peace, it is discomfort, sometimes panic, sometimes grief, sometimes a restlessness so intense you want to reach for your phone immediately. This is normal, this is expected, this is the shadow announcing itself. The Stoics had a name for this initial discomfort. They called it the price of admission. You do not get to the stillness without passing through the restlessness. You do not get to the clarity without passing through the confusion. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as possible. Associate with those who will improve you. Receive those whom you yourself can improve." Notice the order. Retire into yourself first, before the relationship, before the improvement of others, before any outward movement at all, because the person who has not yet met themselves has nothing real to bring to any of it. But here is what waits on the other side of the discomfort. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming fully, authentically yourself, not the optimized self, not the performing self, the whole self, including the parts you buried. And he believed after 40 years of evidence that this was the only path to genuine peace, not achievement, not approval, not distraction maintained at a high enough level, wholeness. The Stoics did not speak about inner work in abstract terms. They prescribed specific, daily, unglamorous practices. The first, the evening examination. Seneca wrote that every night, before sleep, he examined the entire day. What bad habit have I cured today? In what way am I better? Not as self-punishment, not as performance of discipline, as honest witnessing, the radical act of seeing yourself as you actually are. The second, deliberate silence. Not meditation in any formal sense, simply the intentional removal of noise. 10 minutes, no phone, no podcast, no input of any kind, just you and whatever arrives. Marcus Aurelius began every day this way, not because silence is comfortable, because it is necessary. The mind that is never silent never hears itself, and the mind that never hears itself is not free, it is simply distracted. The third, the honest question. Not how do I appear, not what do others think, but the question Jung believed was the most important a person could ask. What myth am I living? What story have you built around yourself? Is it true? Is it yours? Or is it the story you constructed to survive and have been running to maintain ever since? Something unexpected happens when you stop running. The things you were afraid to face, they do not destroy you. They rarely do. What destroys people is not the thing in the dark room, it is the years spent refusing to open the door, the anxiety of not knowing, the exhaustion of constant avoidance, the slow, invisible shrinking of a life built around what must not be seen. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, not to be accepted by others, to accept yourself, the parts that are broken, the parts that are afraid, the parts that have failed, and the parts still present, still alive, still waiting, that you abandoned so long ago you have almost forgotten they exist. When you stop running, those parts begin to return, not all at once, not dramatically, quietly, like a room filling slowly with light. You begin to know what you think, not what you have been told to think. You begin to know what you want, not what looks right from outside. You begin to make decisions that are actually yours, and you begin, perhaps for the first time, to feel at home somewhere, not in a place, in yourself. The modern world is extraordinarily good at one thing: keeping you moving. There is always more content, more noise, more stimulation, perfectly calibrated to prevent stillness. The ancients would have recognized this immediately, and they would have said what they always said: the examined life begins not with action but with stillness, not with achievement but with honesty, not with becoming someone different but with finally meeting who you already are. Seneca wrote in his final years, knowing death was close, recede in te ipse, withdraw into yourself, not as retreat from the world, as return to the only ground that is truly yours. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire and still made time to sit with himself, because he understood what the running costs and what the stillness gives back. You have been moving for a long time. The question is not whether you are tired. You are tired. The question is whether you are ready to stop. Not forever, not dramatically, just long enough to hear what has been waiting, patiently, quietly, without judgment, to speak.